Okay, Mark, whenever you're ready to call the meeting to order.
Okay, I would like to call the meeting to order, the January 23rd Medical Trust Board meeting. And then I think, Rosie, you do the roll call.
That would be Yolanda or Monique. They are, they are recording secretaries. Thank you.
Okay.
As we are ready for roll call on Mark Mansell. Mark Mansell,
Here?
Willett Diggs,
Here.
Lauren Shedd,
Here.
and Renee Heuser.
Here.
You're on mute, Mark.
Okay. Do we have any proposed adjustments to the agenda? Okay, so then would Yolanda talk about the guidelines to address the committee, and do we have any that have expressed interest?
And any comments? There weren't any comments.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so now it's time to approve the minutes of the December 5th meeting. Does anybody have any comments or corrections on those minutes? If not, I would look for a motion and a second to approve.
I motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion, a second to approve the December 5th minutes. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Willette, do you want to vote?
Oh, I did.
Oh, I missed it. Sorry. So the minutes are approved. So Christina, if you could go on and review the October and November financials, please. Christina?
On you, Christina.
She logs in with her phone. I see her on here, but I think that's on the application.
Yeah, she sent me an email that she was signed on. Christina, can you hear us? While the ladies are loading the screen sharing for the financials, I'm going to reach out to Christina and see if perhaps her call just dropped off.
Okay. Is it okay for us to move to the underwriting plan while we're getting this straightened out, the financials?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm not sure, is that you, Jameson, the underwriting plan and recommendations, or Tom?
That'll be me. I'll have Tom jump in whenever he thinks I'm missing something.
Okay, take it away.
All right, everybody can see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. So not much has really changed when we're looking at this presentation. Really the big, some of the big changes that we are looking at are more for plan options. So right now I've got the increase at 6.63. The only thing that really updated was with Tom through November claims, which is how we got to a 6.6, or if you do a rolling 12, it's at a 6. So we're still sticking with the 6.6 to build out the rates. So here are the 3 plans with no adjustments to them. And then what I did is I went back, and then this is the contribution where the employees are picking up 6% and the employer in Tucson Unified School District is picking up 6%. The reason this is highlighted green is because there is something in the policies that state that TUSD does have to pay at least 85% of the PPO program. So that's why that's highlighted, to make sure that we're at 85% or better, which that's why it's green. So we're good to go. I ran a few scenarios. So moving the maximum out of pocket to 6,500 for both the PPO 750 and the HDHP 1,500. That just aligns all 3 plans with the same out of pocket max. One of the reasons I usually recommend this is we never know where our large claimants are going to be. And so if we have those 3 plans aligned with the same out of pocket max, all 3 plans will grab the same amount as far as a cost share when it comes to large claimants. And with that, moving those 2 plans up to 6,500, that gives me about a 0.9% overall plan change, which gives to provide the rate that overall factor of 0.9910, which I estimate to be about almost a $300,000 savings. So again, I have some additional notes here. I just kind of say exactly what I just said. We kind of get the maximum cost share, no matter what plan the large claimant falls on. The second one that I ran was reducing the PCP visit to $15, making low-cost services more affordable, and is a good way to try to avoid hospitalizations. I always make the statement that I'd rather see somebody go to the primary care physician 52 times in a year instead of having one inpatient, utilization. So we can keep those individuals going to the primary care physician. They're our best line of defense to keep our members and employees out of the hospital. That change would be about $2,000 actual cost to the plan. But I think in the long term, it breaks down the barriers for your employees, and they can go see the primary care physician at only a $15 copay. And then I ran a scenario to reduce the PPO 750 from 90 to 80 with the $6,500 max amount of pocket for both the 750 and HDHP plan of 1,500, which that all together gave me about 3%. So it gives me a factor of 0.96. So that's when I'm adjusting those rates down, which roughly is about $700,000. In talking, and so in doing so, what it sounded like the best option would be is to do 2 and 3 together, to provide the out-of-pocket at $6,500 for these 2 plans, 80% co-insurance, and then a $15 copay is where these end up adjusting as an example, or what I think would be best for the overall strategy of the plan for this plan year. It does help bring us down to a 4.94% as well. And so then I just ran the same scenario, making sure that we're still keeping with the same percentages. This scenario provides guidance on contribution where the employees are going up 4.9%, the Tucson Unified's going up 4.9%. This kind of gives you an idea of what the adjustment is to the employee per month. So employee only for that PPO plan, they're only going up $4.09. So that's roughly 2,752 of your employees that will have just a small adjustment. 69 will have an adjustment of 42.54. Children, 105 of those employees will see an adjustment of 33. Families, 28 will see adjustment of 53. The other two plans are much less because of their rate distribution. But overall, I think those are pretty decent plan changes, helps align our out-of-pocket maximums, and gives somewhat of a savings both to the employee and the employer overall when it comes to their premiums. I'm going to pause there and see what Tom has to add and see what questions may be out there.
Jameson, if you could flip back to page, I think it's 3, where we see the fixed expense.
Yep.
You can see the fixed expense there on line 23 shows $40.56. That last year, or excuse me, in this year, that number was $63.80. And I think Ricky is planning to talk more about it in his part of the presentation, Ricky Hernandez, but I just wanted to mention that that decrease is a result of, there were contributions in the last fixed expense. When we looked at the data from the prior year's underwriting before we came on board, there was a part of that fixed expense which was to fund the HSA, the gross HSA contribution, which was about 1.8 million that the district makes, and that had been put in the fixed expense. And so that's one of the reasons this number is lower this year, is we have taken that out of there. And I think Ricky's going to talk more about it. I don't want to steal his thunder, but it's a big part of this underwriting. So I just wanted to mention it at this time. And I know we've talked about it with Rosie. I think Mark, I think you were on a call when we talked about it too. I don't know if there's any questions.
Yeah, and really just to kind of add to that, the HSA was, it looked like it was part of your fixed cost with, I think, the idea of the trust actually funding the HSA amounts. But what was happening is we were all paying into the trust for HSA estimations, but then TUSD was still just doing it on their own outside of the trust balance. So it was kind of like the trust was accidentally, I think, double dipping.
Well, it kind of overfunded it because they did pay it out of district funds. They paid the HSA to the employees out of district funds, not trust funds. So that's one reason that fixed expense is dropped so significantly. So I did want to add that. And I know Ricky's going to talk a little bit about that in his presentation.
But Tom, just to be clear for everybody, was paying that HSA contribution to the trust, but it was also paying it to the employees.
Right. They took the amount of the estimated annual cost of what they would pay to the employees into their HSAs, and that was added to the fixed expense. And that money went into the trust. But in the reality of the situation is those HSA payments to the employees are made out of the district funds. And that was about 1.8 million a year. I don't know how many years it was happening. It's in this year's number. I know that, but it's being taken out of next year's number because it's not necessary.
Okay. So, Jameson, do you have anything else or open it up for discussion?
Yeah, no, that's pretty much the end of the presentation as far as it goes from my side, but I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns the way that I set this up.
Okay, while we're waiting for Ricky, is Christina back with us?
Can you hear me?
We can hear
Yes.
you.
Okay. So, my suggestion before we discovered that I was muted, was I'll just go through the comparative for the month of October, and then I'll cover the full set of financials for November, if that's acceptable.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Monique, do you have
So,
the financials ready to post?
are you asking me? No, can
There
you pull them up?
they are.
Yes, Christina,
Okay.
can you see them?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect.
So, Rosie, if you'll just go to, in the lower right corner, it says, page 4 out of 10 is the page you need to go to. So it'll probably be page 5 on the PDF. Okay, so this is the prior year comparison for the month of, October. I'll go up a page, please, Rosie. Alrighty. So, total premiums were, in the current year, 11 million. Last year, they were basically 11 million, so only $134,000 increase. If interest on investments is up, 34,000. The, miscellaneous is just, I forget what they call them, when CVS does the checking of the claims. And we had a refund of prior year expenses last year. There's nothing this year. If you scroll down a little bit more, Rosie. So in terms of total expenses, we had 11.5 for the current year, 12.9 for the prior year. So expenses are down 1.4. 1.1 of that pertains to the combination of medical going down, prescription going up a little bit. Our IBNR adjustment has gone down from previous years. So that gives us net ordinary income in the current year, a loss of 400,000. Last year it was 1.95, so a decrease in losses of 1.55. Next page, Rosie. So prescription rebates for the current year are 1.1. Last year they were $1 million, just a $30,000 difference. Change in value of investments, again, they're all in CDs, but the market has changed, so that's a decrease of 64,000, which is just a paper entry. Excess revenue over expenditures. So for the current year, we have 628,000 net profit. Last year, we had 872,000 net loss, so an increase of 1.5 million. Scroll down just a little bit more, Rosie. The net cash before reserves was 22 million. Last year, it was 18.5, so an increase in the net cash of 3.5. To take out the reserves for IBNR, which decreased about $1 million this year, we have 18.6 million in cash reserves, and last year we had 14. In terms of just in the month of October, large claims, we had 4 large claims totaling $339,000. If you want to pull up the November one, Rosie, and we'll start from the beginning. Go down just a little more. In terms of the balance sheet, in checking and savings, we have 14.2 $4 million. That's between monies with the county, the impressed accounts, between United Healthcare, which is still saving that money because we're still receiving claim activity, UMR, and a little bit of other cash that's in transit between banks. The Wells Fargo investments, we have $1.5 million in the money market. The rest is all invested in CDs. That's $7.5 million. Unrealized change in value of investments cumulatively is down $340,000. It gives us $21.6 million in assets. Page, Rosie. Accounts payable is $324,000 between payroll taxes, timing, and normal accounts payable claims. The IBNR is $3.5 million. The restricted fund balance is $10.2 million. And then the unrestricted funds plus reserves for stabilization and our net income for the year gives us total equity of $17,807. You can scroll it down just a little more, Rosie. And that gives us total liabilities and equities of $21.6 million. Next page. In the month of November, we had $2.8 million in premiums and interest on investments, almost $2.7 in expenditures, giving a net ordinary income for the month of $170,000. We had a small amount of prescription rebates of $9,000. The investment valuation actually went up, so there was $822 in that. That gave us total other income of $9,800 and a net revenue and expenditures for the month of $180,000 positive. On the next page, Rosie.
Okay, I think I'm back
Comparative.
now.
Pardon, Mark?
I got cut off, but I'm back now.
Okay. So the current year through November cumulative was almost $14 million. Last year it was 13.8. So an increase in total income of $198,000. The total expenditures were 14.2. Last year they were 16.1, a decrease of $1.9 million.
Do you mind scrolling that up?
Oh, sorry, scroll down, Rosie. I'm looking at my notes and I don't notice it. Again, primarily the medical claims were down 1.9. The prescription claims were up 216. And the out-of-network was up 20,000, so that was a net decrease in those type of medical claims of 1.7. And then again, the IBNR adjustment is 248,000 than it had been. That gave net ordinary income increase of $2.1 million. The total large claims, we had two totaling $157,000. Page, Rosie. So cumulatively for the year, we've received $1.1 million in prescription rebates. Last year, we pretty much received the same amount. The change in value of investments on my computer. Change in value of investments. $90,000 decrease cumulative. Last year it was $33,000 cumulative, so the investment valuation was down almost $8,000. That gave total excess revenue over expenditures of almost $809,000 year to date for November, the current year. Last year it was $1.3 million loss. So we've had an increase through November of $2.1 million. If you look at the plan year, the Net cash before reserves was 21.9 million. Last year it was 17.9. So that's a 3.9 or almost $4 million increase in our cash reserves. The IBNR was $3.4 million. Last year it was 4.5, so the reserves were down $1 million. That gave us ending cash balance after reserves of 18.4 million. Last year was 13.4, so basically a $5 million increase in the reserve. And next page, Rosie. So this is just basic supplementary income. I do want to point out that the county yield on investment has gone up to 3.3%. Next page, Rosie. Is the statement of cash flow. So we start with our net income of $809,000. Our market value is a non-cash adjustment, so we are adding that back. Accounts payable increase, so we were deducting that down. And payroll taxes. Change in the IBNR gave us net cash provided by operating activities of $1 million. We count the cash and investments at the beginning of the period of $20.8 million, and so our cash and investments at the end of the period is where we get to the $21 million. Page, Rosie. It's just the listing of the current investments. So there's $6 million investments remaining with Wells Fargo. In fiscal year 23, there will be $1.2 million more to mature, and we will be rolling that money as it matures over into the county in the prior meetings.
Christina, this is, I guess, a question for the financial people at the school district, but because interest rates have climbed so much, would it be worth trying to get out of these CDs at the market value and reinvesting them in a higher interest bearing, put them into the county or something?
I'm gonna let Ricky reply to that one. I'm not sure what his strategy might be.
Yeah, so to your point, Mark, we are recommending that we, as these come due, as they mature, we liquidate the proceeds that come from these and we reinvest them with the county. The county treasurer has a much larger multi-million-dollar pool that allows her to invest these in a lot better investments that yield much better returns, especially now that the interest rates are much higher. So she can manage these in such a way, like she does most of our assets, in a way that would yield a lot better return on investment for the trust. So that is something that I know you all approved, I believe back in September, was for us, as these mature, for us to start moving them to the county treasurer. And she would then kind of be the custodian for these, and we would get a statement from her on a monthly basis at that point.
Yeah, Ricky, the question, I guess, is if you look at, there's one, for example, that is Fall River 5 cents, doesn't mature till February of next year. It's got a market value of just under 95%. But it's only paying 0.5% interest. Would it be worth liquidating that for the 95 cents on the dollar and immediately rolling that into the county at the higher rate?
I mean, other than the loss of the 90, the nickel, I don't know if there are other penalties. I'd have to take a look at if there are other penalties because these are CDs. Sometimes they do include them, but I mean, we could certainly explore and let you know what, if any, losses we would experience. I mean, at a 0.5% interest rate, I think the losses would be something we could take because the earnings later on would recoup those losses.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth that much effort, but Because a lot of these roll off in the next year.
Mhm.
Oh, no, those are the purchase dates, so. Anyway,
Yeah, we
yeah, a
can,
lot of these will roll off by July of this year.
yeah, a lot of these were purchased before I arrived, so I don't know what the circumstances were, but certainly the interest rates were much leaner 12 months ago than they are today.
Yeah, it seems like we're always chasing. When we went heavy into Wells Fargo, they were outdoing the county, and now it's flipped, so.
Yeah. We'll take a look and see if what might be worth it. I think it's worth exploring. For sure.
Okay, thank you, Ricky.
Next page, Rosie. So this is just some basic statistics. The upper section is just a high-level summary. The next section is the average member count. It's down just 54 people from the year before. Then there's the graphic representation. A little further down is the per member per month revenue and cost. Current year, it nets out to $0.84 more in costs than revenue. Last year, it was $22.61. Below that is just a graphic representation. Next page, Rosie. And this is expenditures incurred per member per month. Graphically, scroll down just a little bit more, Rosie. So for the current year, it was $591.11. Last year, it was $714.58. November. Averaging last year to this year, a 3-month period, the average last year was $818. This year it was $638. And that was for 3 months. And if we do a year-to-date average, last year it was $736. And this year it's about $650. Questions on any of the financials? Did I lose people?
Mark, I think you're muted.
Oh, Christina, did you get a chance to look at December at all?
No, I haven't had a chance. We've been involved with an audit, so
Okay,
I'm hoping
all right.
that soon.
Okay, well, if there's no questions, I would look for a motion in a second to approve the October and November financials.
I move to approve the October and November financials as presented this evening.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second to approve the October and November financials. All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, the motion passes. So Ricky, who's going to talk about the contribution status? Our strategy, we're at 5.02.
I'm guessing that's me. Is that right, Rosie? I don't have
Yes. Yes, sorry, I was trying to unmute. Yes, Ricky, that would be you presenting on this item, please.
Okay,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, so.
let me pull up my presentation really quickly. Okay, everybody can see, hold on really quick, you probably can't get it. Everybody can see that presentation?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So this is, it'll be rather brief, kind of presentation on the funding strategy for next fiscal year for insurance. This is based on, Rosie, I've assumed Valley has already done their piece at this point?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
This is based on the some of the pieces that you already received from Valley. So I'll dive into it and then I'll take questions as we kind of go along. So just currently as an update, our current status is that TUSD contributes about 84% towards all of the premiums that we are charged for our insurance benefits. Employees contribute the remaining 16%, which comes out to about a $35 million to $7 million share for our insurance. This fiscal year, ESSER funds were used to offset about $2 million in claims in order to kind of stave off an increase for insurance premiums for our employees. That was just kind of a one-time drop in the bucket to keep our employees from experiencing increases in their premiums for fiscal year 23. Now, one element that we discovered in talking to Valley was as it relates to the fixed expense, which essentially includes all of the administrative expenses to manage the EBT. Right now, all employees participating in all of our health plans are paying $32.65 as part of this fixed expense on a per employee per month. This is part of the district's contribution to an employee's HSA. Now, what's interesting is that the district's contribution to employee HSAs already comes from the fund where the employee's salary and benefits are already otherwise paid. This means that employees in all plans are essentially paying towards the contribution of HSAs to the tune of $32.65. And it really just looks then like a double dip, because then we collect it from employees and then we collect it from the account where the salary and benefit for that particular employee is paid from. And then it all ends up going into the trust. This means that that the trust balance has yielded $3 million in excess cash. So more than what it really needs to pay for all of the claims and all of the activities that it currently needs to fund employee benefits. So because of that, compiled or added to the strategy that you've already received from Valley, this is what we're looking for next fiscal year. So we want to eliminate the $32.65 from that PEPM fixed expense. So reduce the fixed expense by $32.65. Recommend the implementation of plan changes for fiscal year 24 that Valley Schools presented, which yields about a $505,000 savings. And then offset the fiscal year 24 increases to employee and employer contributions by 100% for employees. So the $337,000 that they would otherwise see, we pay that off using the excess cash in the trust. And 50% of the contributions that come from TUSD, which is about $700,000 and change. And that subsidy would come from the trust. About $1 million of that would come from the trust. So we would essentially only be paying $700,000 next year into the trust to help pay for the premiums for fiscal year 24. Now, what does that kind of look like? So the $1 million in funding isn't going to affect the 6 months worth of claims reserve that the trust currently has. The trust currently has a policy of keeping 6 months worth of claims in cash on hand. Right now, the projected claims, according to Valley, are about $35.5 million. If you take about 6 months worth of that, it's about just under $18 million. We're currently assuming about a $22 million balance before reserves. So there is a delta there of about $3 million or so, for almost $4 million in change. Obviously, the net cash right now is still kind of an estimate, but it still will be well within that 6 month reserve policy. So I know as management, as TUSD, that the EBT has limited capacity to do this kind of subsidy. And I've already talked to Dr. Trujillo, and we're having a conversation with the board tomorrow night in executive session about what we do with future contributions to eliminate this type of subsidy from happening. We want to make sure that the reserve policy remains intact. We never want to go below that 6 month But even then, we want to make sure that the health of the trust remains intact, because this is not something we want to continue. We know that there are other factors that are going to come into play down the road, like potentially a new provider, potentially, a new strategy, which I've talked to our new Chief Human Capital Officer about strategies related to how we enroll people in benefits, how we teach people about the use of benefits, so that we can try to mitigate some of these expenses. So it's definitely going to take a multi-pronged approach, but we definitely are going to develop some form of a plan to try to not come back to the trust to request for additional subsidies going down the road. And that's it. Any questions at this point?
Ricky, this is Mark. I do have a question. So I understand the total amount of the subsidy with the $3 million that was being contributed, kind of double dipping. And then the subsidy for $1 million. Is the trust really going to see a $4 million change from last year to this year?
That's currently the estimate, just because we continue. I mean, we're still collecting that 3265 for everybody. So that's the direction that we seem to be going. Is that we will have, I mean, it may not be exactly 4, but upwards of 3 million, approaching 4 million in cash compared to the 6-month policy though. So, and even though we may have $21 million on hand, it's a delta to the reserve.
So Ricky, the thing that concerns me, and I hope the other trustees will jump in. So last year you guys had an influx of an extra 2 million from what the SR plan. This year, there's a $4 million change. I'm okay with it, but does the district understand that at some point there's not going to be money to make these huge offsets to minimize the pain to the district and the employees?
Yes. I mean, the short answer is yes. That's part of why we have to come up with a plan internally to say, if we're changing plans, for example, 12 months from now, or 18 months from now, and the pricing looks different, or even if we stay with UMR and the pricing goes up, then what does that strategy and what does that investment have to look like? I mean, we have to prepare that now, because it's not just the contribution to benefits, it's also the contribution to salaries that we've recommended. And that's what we're trying to offset right now, is trying to keep those increases to salaries from essentially being eaten by this increase in benefits. But we are fully well aware of the fact that this isn't a permanent solution. This is essentially kicking the can down the road for another 12 months.
And to the trustees, I met with the district. Unfortunately, Renee was not able to make it, but part of my belief is, we will support the district in what they want to do, but I think one of our big roles is to advise them what they're doing. So at some point, all of a sudden, everybody's not running around surprised why there's not a lot of money left in the trust. So so far we're having a good year. We can handle this, but I don't know how much longer we can handle these kinds of numbers.
Right. I think Renee Poiser has a question.
Thank you, Ricky. So I appreciate Valley Schools' work to get that percentage down. It was 6 point something down to 4.9.
Right.
So that's great. That's a 2% decrease. I know that last year the employee increase was 3%, and that was covered by the ESSER funds. So the employees saw no increase. That means that this year that 3% should have flowed forward to the employee anyway. We're now adding to that another 4.9. So that's essentially, we're pushing 8% to the employee that they're not going to see if this is approved, because it's all going to be covered. Just looking at trend, which I think Valley Schools will tell you averages around 7% a year. That puts us next year at about a 15% increase. So that's a pretty huge cliff for an employee. What's the plan when the can gets there?
So clarify for me one thing, Tom, because I think you're on there, is the 4.9 the total increase, or the 4.9 the increases to just the employee share?
The 4.9 is the increase in total.
Okay.
And if you look at, in Jameson's underwriting, he just distributed that evenly between the employer and the employee. Jameson, is that?
Yeah, that's correct. So in my underwriting, I'm recommending a 4.9% change to funding rates to, I guess, annualize out what my expectation is for medical and pharmacy spend plus fixed costs. So how you distribute that to the employees, because you're not set up in a defined contribution, which is good, gives you more flexibility with what you want to do for employees each year, not having that defined contribution. But as the way I set it up, just in my contribution analysis, I just gave both the employer and the employee that 4.9%. But Ricky's recommendation obviously is to pay in 50% of that 4.9 and then hold the employees harmless and taking on that 337,000. So.
Yeah, and the superintendent is aware. So Dr. Trujillo understands that this is a can that keeps kicking and it keeps getting heavier the further down the road it goes.
Yeah.
And so we know that a much larger investment will have to come at some point. So we appreciate the fact that this isn't a permanent or frankly a really strong solution, but it is one that will at least enable our employees to not see a significant increase compared to the fact that they're getting an increase in their pay and then it would be eaten up essentially by a significant increase in their insurance. So it will lead to a much harder discussion, particularly with the board members, because they know as well that this isn't permanent. This isn't a good way to do it. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So we know that we're coming up on a big number.
Okay, and my thing is just as long as it's crystal clear to the district, that what we've been doing is not sustainable. So.
Well,
Yeah.
I keep going back to, at some point the employee is going to pick that up, and it's not going to be a 3% increase or a 4% increase. It's going to be a 15 or a 16% increase.
And there's also, just to add to that, there's not a lot of lever left in your plan design either. So to help try to eat any future increases, it's not really going to come from plan design.
Unless we get draconian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So any more questions? So if there's no more questions, I would look for a motion in a second to approve the underwriting proposal as presented by Jameson and the funding plan proposed by Ricky.
Okay, I move to approve the funding plan and the, oh no, what was the other one? And the underwriting. Yeah.
With the plan changes?
Yes.
I get it. I just have a huge fear of where we're going to be sitting next year. I think the plan changes are great. I'm super concerned about seeing absolutely no increase to the employee this year and knowing what's going to hit next year, because the trust is not going to have another $3 or $4 million to cover the increase again. I don't know what our options are.
I mean, if you want us to go back and rework it, we can go back and rework it. It just pushes the time frame a little bit down for us to go to the board. I know Rosie and John wanted to go to the board in February. So I mean, if you want us to go back and kind of take a look, you know, at some alternative scenarios, we certainly can do that and see where we land, and then push the decision down a few weeks. I don't know, Rosie or John, if you guys have any thoughts on that one.
So definitely we want the committee to, you know, to make the decision based on, you know, where you guys are comfortable with. So just as Ricky said, if this is something that you want to push out, the only thing that I would, you know, let you all know is that currently we do not have an EBT meeting scheduled for the month of February. So this would require us putting another meeting early in February so that we can get this agenda item to the governing board, hopefully in the special meeting that they hold at the end of the month of February. We have new implementation happening with the new enrollment portal. So that is taking a lot of time in the month of March when that goes live to our employees. So we are in a very tight timeline. But again, you know, as Ricky has stated, if this is something that you guys need more time on, you know.
I mean, I guess here's what I would say. If this is the district's recommendation and everybody understands that we're looking at potentially a 15% increase to the employee premium cost next year, and it doesn't come back that the Employee Benefits Trust Board has thrown 15% at us, because but you know, this is me saying I don't think we should do this. But if everybody's comfortable moving forward with this, you know, I'll go ahead and vote with the team tonight. But with concerns, I want to be very
Clear about it.
clear
Yeah.
that I can see that the employees are going to take a huge hit. And we've had this conversation. We worked really hard for several years to stop subsidizing, right? We weaned ourselves off of that over the course of about 3 or 4 years so that the plan was healthy and the employee premium and the employer premiums together were managing and keeping that plan where it needed to be. And so you know, last year we worried about covering that 3% with ESSER funds because we knew that the employee, whatever increase they were going to see this year, was going to be in addition to that 3% last year. And doing that 2 years in a row with such another significant increase, it's frightening. At some point, the employee is going to see a massive increase in that premium. It's not going to be incremental over the years. It's going to be big.
And Renee, I totally agree. And that's why I can't stress enough that, you know, Ricky needs to make sure the district understands that you know, I think at some point, the trust, we're here to support the district, make recommendations, and even though it's very difficult for us, and I believe we can see where we're headed, if the district, you know, understands, and I think hopefully they do, then I can support it, but I think next year is going to be really ugly. But, you know, if that's where the district wants to go this year, and we've got the funds to do it, I'm fine with supporting it.
And you know, let me be clear. My conversation with the board on exactly what you're all talking about is a conversation I'm having with them tomorrow night. So, you know, so this is really helpful for me because in addition to this, I do have another element that I'm going to talk to them about in executive session that is part of this funding strategy that I'm not presenting to you all tonight, because I have to talk to them first. So there's all of that is going to be a conversation with the board to kind of talk to them about the fact that we're rolling this over one more time, but that doesn't mean that this goes away. That just compounds, and it's going to come back to both the district and the employee at some point to kind of reckon with, and we're going to have to figure out how to resolve that. And the board has to stand by that decision, because ultimately we're going to present this same option to the board and they could just come back and say, no, I don't, you know, because of what Renee is exactly talking about. I mean, we certainly understand that. And we might be back to square one, you know, February 28th, or February 16th, whenever we talk to them. So it's definitely going to be made extremely clear to the board members tomorrow evening.
So Renee, realizing it's qualified, did you do a second with, you know, obviously your reservation? Hello?
You're breaking up, but I think I got the gist of it. Yes, I will second Lauren's motion to accept the Valley Schools recommendations on.
Okay, I'm internet's bouncing in and out.
Want me to continue? I will second Lauren's motion to accept the plan changes presented by Valley Schools.
Okay, so we have a
The-
motion and a second on the under. Okay, sorry, my internet's bouncing in and out. So Lauren, did you vote?
No, I vote aye.
Aye.
Okay. So I apologize. So the motion passes.
Mark, I'm sorry, what was your vote?
Is our 3-0 pass the underwriting plan is presented? Did you get that?
No, you were
Monique, you're
you were
muted.
cutting out. The last thing I got was your vote, and the rest we couldn't hear.
Okay. All right, so the last item is the next meeting date.
Mark, I'm sorry, did you vote on 5.2?
Yes, we did, and it passed 3-0.
Okay, thank you.
So the last item is the next meeting date, and I believe that's in March, isn't it, Monique?
Yes, it's scheduled for March 6th.
I didn't hear that, Monique. I'm sorry.
It's scheduled for Monday, March 6th.
Okay. And can you send a meeting notice out so we can get it on our calendars?
Yes.
Okay, and then the last thing I have is we're down, by my count, we're down 3 board members. There's the 3 of us. The new district HR director will take one of them, so that'll put us at 4. I think the target is 7. So we're down 3. So if any of you have anybody that you think would be interested, it would be very helpful to get a couple more members. I've reached out to a few places, but with not any luck. Mark Clark reached out to some people he knew with no luck. So
I wonder also, are they going to look at a different liaison from the governing board, Ricky, or whoever's from the district? Or are they expecting Dr. Ravi to remain? It would be great if whoever the liaison from the board is could attend these meetings.
that's a really good point, Renee. If one of the board members could listen to these discussions firsthand.
Don't know. I could certainly bring it up to them tomorrow just to kind of like in passing, let them know about that. But I would think that HR would probably want to put that on an agenda maybe down the road.
Yeah, it would be nice to have a board member that has Monday nights open that could attend these meetings. I think it would just be really helpful for them to hear firsthand the amount of work and the decisions that we have to go through. Okay, does anybody have anything else? So I'm looking for a motion to end the meeting.
I motion that we adjourn.
And a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody. I really, really appreciate everybody's work and concern. Have a good evening.
Thanks you
Okay.
too, Mark. Enjoy
Okay.
Guatemala.
I will.
All right. Bye.